From lavish indoor pools to private baseball fields, from waterfront compounds to Spanish-style homes, these are the million-dollar mansions belonging to famous WWE wrestlers. And the deeper you go, the more surprising these homes become, because every legend has a very different idea of luxury. Kicking off our list with John Cena, and honestly, this one is seriously impressive. Cena bought his home in Land O'Lakes, a quiet suburb near Tampa back in 2005. The price tag at the time was just $525,000. Today, that same property is worth roughly $4 million. The mansion sits behind a gated lot and combines classic colonial styling with modern upgrades. Cena added those upgrades over the years. But the real shocker is waiting inside. Cena built an indoor pool designed to resemble a cave. You've got rock formations, waterfalls, water slides, and tropical plants all enclosed beneath glass, so sunlight pours in without allowing the Florida humidity to ruin the place. It genuinely looks like a theme park water ride somehow built inside someone's living room. Then there's the cigar lounge, which Cena has called his gentleman's room. Leather couches, a chessboard, dim lighting, and specialized ventilation keep the smoke from spreading throughout the rest of the house. It's less of a man cave and more like a private lounge that most five-star hotels would envy. And because no wrestler's house feels complete without somewhere to park serious cars, Cena's garage holds 6 vehicles, including a few from his personal collection of Ferraris and Lamborghinis. Add in a home theater, a game room, and a wine cellar, and you begin to understand why this house took nearly 2 decades to fully become what it is today. Cena's mansion isn't flashy from the street. It's the kind of place that keeps its biggest secrets hidden indoors. And speaking of hidden surprises, our next wrestler's home has one involving water, speed, and plenty of screaming kids. The Undertaker built a reputation as one of the scariest men in WWE history. But his home in Austin, Texas, is almost the complete opposite of that dark persona. Mark Calloway, along with his wife Michelle McCool, settled into a home in the Texas Hill Country that feels like a relaxed family retreat. The standout feature here is the backyard pool, and specifically the slide attached to it. This isn't some plastic slide you'd find at a big box store. It's a custom sculptural water slide built by a design studio called Splinter Works. A water system keeps it cooled so it doesn't become a scorching metal slide beneath the brutal Texas sun. Beyond the pool, the home offers sweeping views of the hill country. It's a quieter chapter compared with his earlier Texas ranch near Houston, which had a Gothic mansion with gargoyles and a private pond once rented out by Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. This newer home swaps the spooky aesthetic for something far more family-friendly. On screen, he was the Undertaker. At home, he's simply a dad with a seriously impressive pool slide. But from one legend settling into family life, we move to a legend who has been building an empire of mansions most wrestlers can only dream about. Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, owns one of the biggest lots in the entire Beverly Hills neighborhood. In April 2021, Johnson paid $27.8 million for a Mediterranean-style mansion in the ultra-exclusive North Beverly Park community. The initial asking price was $30 million, but The Rock negotiated it down because apparently even action movie stars appreciate a good deal. The home carries serious history behind it. It was built back in 1993 by Alex Van Halen and later sold to actor Paul Reiser before landing in Johnson's hands. The estate spans 3.67 acres with nearly 18,000 square feet of living space between the main house and a separate 2,500-foot guest house. Inside there are 6 bedrooms and 11 1/2 bathrooms, which is more bathrooms than most people will ever use in a lifetime. But outside is where things become almost unbelievable. There's a tennis court, which is common enough for a house at this price. But then there's a full-size baseball diamond in the backyard. The Rock has his own personal baseball field only steps from his back door. The driveway alone feels like an event, lined with mature olive trees leading toward a motor court with a stone fountain at the center. And the neighbors match the price tag. Denzel Washington, Sylvester Stallone, and Eddie Murphy all live nearby. For a guy who grew up moving between cheap apartments and motel rooms with his family, this house is proof of exactly how far he's come. However, while The Rock flaunts his lavish mansion, another member of the bloodline has a completely different taste in real estate. Roman Reigns may be one of WWE's most dominant forces today, but his real estate choices are surprisingly down to earth. Reigns lives in Southwest Ranches, Florida, an area known for wide-open lots, equestrian properties, and serious privacy. His current home cost him $2.4 million, a modest number compared with some of the mansions already covered, but the property itself is anything but basic. The house sits at just over 8,100 square feet with 5 bedrooms and 7 bathrooms spread across the layout. It's built for a big family, which makes sense given how many kids Reigns is raising at home. The place is designed around comfort rather than flash, with an open floor plan connecting the kitchen, dining area, and living room so everyone can stay together instead of scattering across different wings of the house. One of the biggest draws is the view. Large windows wrap around the home, bringing in natural light while framing a big backyard pool that becomes the centerpiece of the property. It's the kind of setup made for weekend afternoons with the family rather than huge Hollywood parties. Reigns has moved around Florida a few times over the years, previously living in areas like Bloomingdale before eventually settling into this current estate. But wherever he's lived, one theme remains consistent. Reigns keeps his home life low-key and focused on family, which tracks with everything he said about being a father first and a wrestler second. And speaking of family-focused stars with a completely different vibe, let's head to Missouri, where the Viper has built a home just as intense as his in-ring character, minus the venom. Randy Orton lives in O'Fallon, Missouri, a quiet suburb about 30 minutes outside St. Louis, close to where he grew up. Orton bought the property back in 2016 for $1.5 million, and it spans just under 4 acres with roughly 7,400 feet of living space. The house leans into a rustic, grounded style instead of anything overly flashy. Inside, there's a media room, a billiards room, and an exercise room complete with a sauna, useful for a guy who's been in the ring for over 2 decades. Outside, the property includes a pool, a fire pit for cool Missouri evenings, and a 5-car garage to house Orton's collection. The backyard also has verandas and patios designed for hosting, along with a barbecue area that gets plenty of use during the warmer months. What stands out most about Orton's home isn't the size, it's the location. Rather than chasing the beaches of Florida or the hills of California like so many of his peers, Orton stayed close to his roots in Missouri. Up next, we head to Florida's Gulf Coast, where a legend spent his final years living larger than life. Hulk Hogan's final home was a waterfront compound in Clearwater Beach, Florida. Put together in 2 stages, Hogan bought the main house in 2012 for $3.3 million, then expanded the property in 2016 by purchasing the house right next door for another $1.6 million. Combined, the compound was worth around $1.4 million. The main residence spans 5,400 square feet with 5 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms, built in a Mediterranean style that fits right in with the Florida coastline. Inside, there's a 2-way staircase with stained glass doors, a great room with soaring ceilings, and a gas fireplace overlooking a covered terrace with golf views. The kitchen is stocked with Sub-Zero and Wolf appliances. And for anyone wanting to unwind after dinner, there's a 900-bottle wine cellar and a full home theater. Outside is where the property truly earns its price tag. There's a resort-style infinity pool with dual spas, both indoor and outdoor kitchens, and a private dock offering direct access to the Gulf of Mexico. However, this wasn't Hogan's first rodeo when it came to jaw-dropping real estate. Before Clearwater, he owned a 17,000 QFT mansion in Bel Air that served as the backdrop for his reality show Hogan Knows Best, complete with a personal wrestling memorabilia museum. He also briefly owned an 18,000-foot Miami Beach mansion that he later sold to director Michael Bay for nearly $19 million. Hogan's homes tell the story of a man who lived big throughout every stage of his career. But in stark contrast to Hogan, our next legend prefers keeping things simple away from the cameras. Brock Lesnar is famously private, and his choice of home reflects that perfectly. Lesnar owns 2 properties, both far from the noise of major cities. His main home sits in Minnesota, valued at around $800,000, tucked away in a quiet wooded area, while the house itself keeps things simple. There's a wood-themed interior, a spotless kitchen, and a hot tub out on the porch, perfect for unwinding after a hunting trip. His second property sits across the border in Mayfield, Saskatchewan, valued at roughly $2.1 million. This is where Lesnar actually spends most of his time with his family, far removed from arenas and cameras. Both properties give him easy access to hunting, fishing, and the kind of rural, self-sufficient lifestyle he's talked about loving in interviews. For a guy who's dominated both UFC and WWE at the highest level, Lesnar's homes prove he doesn't need a mansion to feel like a champion. Sometimes the biggest flex is simply not caring what anyone thinks. But from a man who avoids the spotlight, we head to Los Angeles, where another Paul Heyman guy built a home that matches his love of books, comics, and creativity. CM Punk made his return to wrestling in 2021, and shortly afterward, he made a serious real estate move, too. Punk bought a Spanish Revival home in the Los Feliz neighborhood of Los Angeles for $4 million. Built back in 1937, the home fully embraces that classic Spanish Revival style. Stucco walls, tile roofing, and arched doorways run throughout. It sits on a good-sized lot and spans just under 3,800 square feet with 3 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms. Inside, the home clearly reflects Punk's personality. There's a library with built-in bookshelves, perfect for a guy known for his love of reading and comic books. The living room has wood flooring and a fireplace, while the kitchen was fully renovated with marble countertops and professional-grade appliances. Outside, there's an in-ground pool surrounded by landscaped gardens. Punk also still owns a home back in Chicago, his hometown, which he bought years earlier for just over $2 million. That property even includes its own tattoo studio, which generates rental income on the side. But going from Punk's humble abode, let's look at the mansion belonging to the man responsible for building the entire empire that made all these fortunes possible in the first place. Vince McMahon purchased his home in Greenwich, Connecticut back in 1985, right around the same time he was buying out his father's wrestling company. The estate sits in the ultra-exclusive Conyers Farm community, a neighborhood so private it has attracted neighbors like filmmaker Ron Howard and actor Tom Cruise over the years. The mansion spans roughly 12,400 square feet across 3 stories, with 7 bedrooms and 9 bathrooms in total. Walking through the front door, you're met with a double-height foyer and a sweeping staircase, the kind of entrance that feels more like a hotel lobby than a private home. There's a formal living room with a classic fireplace, French doors opening onto manicured gardens, and a wood-paneled library that gives off serious old-money energy. The amenities read like something straight out of a 5-star resort. A fully equipped gym, a 2-level swimming pool complete with its own spa, and a conservatory for quiet mornings. There's even an elevator inside the main house, plus a separate apartment above the garage for guests or staff. Outside, a stone fountain greets visitors at the entrance, and the grounds include 2 separate gardens along with waterfront views near Converse Lake. Property records from years back assess the estate at around $1.8 million, but Connecticut assessments typically sit well below actual market value. Media reports have consistently placed the real value closer to $40 million once renovations and decades of appreciation are factored in. From humble beginnings taking over his father's regional wrestling company to building a $40 million empire in one of America's most exclusive zip codes, McMahon's house is the perfect final stop on our journey through lavish wrestler mansions. And if you want a sneak peek into the lives of these wrestlers and discover what WWE wrestlers actually eat, check out this video.